Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to our moderated public forum for the three candidates for the position of Phoenix Police Chief. I'm Vielka Miller, Internal Communications Manager for the City of Phoenix. We also have an interpreter here this evening. For anyone who needs Spanish language support, I'd like to introduce Mario Barajas. Mario, would you like to share a few words?
Yes, Vielka, thank you very much. Good evening, my name is Mario Barajas. I'm going to be serving as a Spanish interpreter for tonight. I'm going to share a few words with our Spanish-speaking audience now. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Mario Barajas. Voy a estar sirviendo como intérprete a los de habla hispana. Quisiera compartir con ustedes un par de puntos, con lo cual nos va a facilitar interpretarles de la mejor manera posible. Primeramente, si es que van a estar escuchando, pues pueden, si están dentro de la cámara, aquí pueden escuchar por medio de los auriculares, si es que no han recogido todavía los auriculares para poder escuchar la interpretación. Y de esa manera van a poder escuchar la interpretación del intérprete. Muchas gracias. Thank you, Vielka.
Thank you, Mario. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us here in person and online. We know this has been a long process, but our goal has been the same all along, and that's that we must get it right. We appreciate your continued interest and patience as we navigate the final stages of finding our next police chief. Before we begin, we'd like to welcome City Manager Jeff Barton, Assistant City Managers Lori Bays and Inger Erickson, as well as members of the Phoenix City Council. Also in attendance tonight, numerous community members and leaders, business leaders, labor leaders, and city staff who have partnered with us during this recruitment process. Let's start with how we got here. So late last year, the city retained the services of a third-party agency, the Police Executive Research Forum, or PERF. That was to help us find our next police chief. The city and PERF met with business leaders, neighborhood groups, residents, community leaders, and labor groups to learn about the characteristics they felt the department's top leader should have. Through community surveys, we heard from hundreds of residents, letting the city leadership know what they wanted to see in a chief and potential questions that we should be asking of all of you. These three finalists were selected to move on and were announced publicly last week. Earlier today, they met with department heads across the city, and tomorrow they'll meet with Mayor Kate Gallego and members of Phoenix City Council, and that brings us here tonight. This forum is an opportunity for the public to have a voice in the selection process for our new police chief. The finalists will be asked a variety of questions about their background, qualifications, and policing philosophy. Residents have provided feedback on the traits they value in a police chief, and the questions they submitted reflect that. Some questions were duplicated and represent common themes. For example, many questions came in about immigration and accountability. Human Resources has reviewed these questions and selected the most comprehensive ones to present to all of you tonight. Our goal is to have these finalists answer as many as possible, so as many questions as possible, over the next 90 minutes. We do not anticipate answering every question that was submitted. However, all responses will be turned over to the new chief so that that individual can see what's most important to the community. Let's go over some of the rules. The candidates have not seen the questions in advance. They will get a set amount of time to answer each question, and we have a timekeeper to hold us to that. And there should be a clock right in front of you that you should all be able to see. As far as the in-person audience, please make sure your phones are on silent. We ask that you're quiet and avoid giving positive or negative responses, such as cheering or booing, so the candidates are comfortable when sharing their views. And let's hold off on applause until the very end so we can get through as many of your questions as possible. And now to the finalists. Again, congratulations to each of you for making it to this point in the interview process. We want to wish each of you good luck tonight. We are going to have you introduce yourselves, and we will go in alphabetical order, and we'd ask that you keep your introduction to a minute. And let's begin with Chief Malik Aziz.
Hey, good evening, and thank you so much, Ms. Miller. First, I'd like to send my thoughts and prayers and condolences to a young brother. We lost Gabriel Facio and his family over in Apache Junction. So with that, he's on our thoughts and our mind. I am Malik Aziz, 36, almost 36-year police veteran. My journey didn't start out that way for looking at what law enforcement would be where I grew up in the city of Dallas until a police officer motorcycle jockey kind of changed my way. So I joined Dallas Sheriff's Office and worked in jail operations for a couple of years before many people said I should move on to Dallas Police. And I did. A few years later, I joined Dallas Police Department, where I had an august career at one of the nation's top law enforcement organizations, and I spent nearly three decades there. I ran over every division and every bureau that you can imagine, from special operations to patrol to administration, and had a very robust career over many numerous events, special events. State Fair of Texas, Bush Library opening, major games such as hockey, Winterfest, major football games such as Texas OU and HBCUs, Prairie View and Grambling. So I've had those numerous events. I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Texas at Arlington. I have a master's degree, MBA, from the University of Dallas. I've served as an adjunct professor at DeSales University. I've sat on major boards from the Dallas Police Museum Board, served as the Dallas PAL Athletic Director, and I've also graduated from Senior Management Institute of Police, FBI National Academy, and FBI National Executive Institute. So I hold a myriad of certificates and honors, and I'm honored to be here with you tonight to share a few of my thoughts and insights.
Thank you, Chief Aziz. Next, we will move to Director Matt Giordano.
Good afternoon, and just like Chief Aziz said, I'm excited and honored to be here, and I'm actually a little humbled. Once the announcement came out, I've received so many positive messages from both current members of the Phoenix Police Department, former members of the Phoenix Police Department, as well as community members that I worked with very closely during my time here. I spent just shy of 23 years with the Phoenix Police Department, retired in January of 2017 to accept a new position with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. Oftentimes when people leave law enforcement after more than 2 decades, they're angry, they're burnt out, they're tired, and they leave for a variety of reasons related to that. That couldn't be farther from the truth. When I left, I was perfectly happy. Jerry Williams just got here, assigned me to the Tactical Support Bureau, which some would argue could be the best commander's position in the city. I was very happy, everything was great, and I got a call from Paul Penzone, who had just been elected as the sheriff after a 24-year run from the previous sheriff. And he asked me if I'd come be his executive chief of enforcement and help him turn that agency around. Again, I'm traditionally risk averse, but it was a great opportunity to go to get career growth, and I went and did that. Spent just shy of 2 years there, about 20 months, and then I went over to, when I was offered a position at Arizona Post, to be the executive director, which I'm currently filling now. I've been there 6.5 years, very proud of a lot of what we've done around the state. We've changed hiring standards, we've changed the basic academy curriculum, we've changed pretty much everything we've done. They had been an agency that hadn't made a lot of changes in 20 to 25 years, and I don't do that. I'm constantly evolving, so that's what I've done. Other than that, I'm excited to come back to the Phoenix Police Department, the city of Phoenix, because they were so good to me during my career. I've been married for 30 years to my wife Kelly, who's a school teacher. I have 3 adult children and 1 adorable grandchild. So honored to be here, and I appreciate everyone coming and taking the time to come out and listen to see what we have to offer. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Giordano. And next, Chief Mirtha Ramos, if you can please take a minute to introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Mirtha Ramos, and I started my career in 1997 in Miami-Dade County. I went up the ranks until 2019 when I was appointed to the chief of DeKalb County Police Department. In the Miami-Dade Police Department, I went up the ranks from officers all the way through division chief, and so I was proud to have that opportunity to go to the DeKalb County Police Department. Been there since 2019. I've taken the last 5.5 years to really focus on community outreach and engagement, working on policies and procedural changes, and really just bridging that gap between the police and the community. And I think I've done a great job in doing that. When the city of Phoenix came open, I really took a moment to take a look at it. And the first thing that popped up was the DOJ report. And rather than being deterred about looking any further, I was actually kind of excited because what I saw was a progressive city that was open to doing better, was able to admit that they maybe could do some things differently and started working on making those changes. The more I looked into the city of Phoenix, I saw that it's a city where the community is very supportive of the police department. The administration is very supportive of the police department, and that's not something you see quite often. So I was very excited knowing that the city is continuously moving forward, and I just wanted to be a part of that, bringing my community outreach and engagement, the fact that I believe that I am a public servant, but I'm serving the community. I don't believe in just serving the community, but serving my officers. So my job every day is just to determine what I can do better for the city in which I am in. And I would hope that that one day will be the city of Phoenix. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief Ramos. Okay, let's get started with the interview questions. So this first section, you'll actually have 2 minutes for your response. And throughout the interview, I'll let you know as the time changes. But for this first section, we'll stick with 2 minutes per response. Okay, on this one, we will begin with Director Giordano. What are your top priorities for the Phoenix Police Department in the first year, and how do you plan to implement them?
Thank you. I'll take those in order. My first priority would be to re-engage with the members of the Phoenix Police Department. There's been a lot of change over the last 3 years, a lot of positive change, moving in the right direction, listening to community input. We just need to do a better job of messaging internally as well as externally, and just recreating some of those relationships. And I'd work very hard at that. Again, going back to community members, I spent a lot of time building advisory boards, engaging with members of the community. I want to make sure we're continuing to do that. They do a lot of really good work. I just want to make sure we're continuing to move and do more. Second of all is people always talk about recruitment and retention. I don't like to go with recruitment because I think the Phoenix Police Department does a really good job recruiting. I want to take a really deep dive and look at how we hire people and how we screen them and how we look at that. We should be looking at them holistically. It's very easy, and that's what Arizona Post did when I got there. They were very quick to say no. We always looked for a way to say no. And since I've been there, I've changed our mantra. Our mantra now is, how do we get to yes? Well, it falls within the rules and the guidelines set forth in statute and rule. And that's what I want to do with hiring. Let's look at people holistically. I think we've lost a lot of really good applicants because, again, in my current position, every new hire audit gets audited at our office, comes across my desk, and I read that. And I see people that Phoenix is losing going to other agencies. And again, a little bit of risk here because I do represent the entire state police officers associations and groups and agencies. But again, I think Phoenix should be getting the cream of the crop, and I want to go back to that. And I want to work on that hiring standard, but also retention. We have a large segment of our department that's eligible to retire in the next 3 to 4 years. And we see more and more now that people are leaving at 20 years instead of staying to 20, 25, maybe even 30. I want to work on that. And then continuous improvement. We've got to keep getting better. We're doing a great job, but there should always be room for improvement. The community evolves, society evolves, the police department needs to evolve as well.
Thank you, Director Giordano. And Chief Ramos, same question. And at any point, if you all need me to repeat a question, I'm happy to do so. Just let me know.
I think my top priorities are going to start with trust. I think we need to rebuild the trust within the Phoenix Police Department, and I'm talking about its employees. There needs to be trust between the officers and the leadership. So I would focus on meeting with the staff from the top all the way to the bottom to understand what's working and what's not working, giving them an avenue to discuss what their concerns are, letting their voices be heard. So we want to know what's working and what's not working. And if there's anything that we can do immediately that there's no cost and we can make sure that we accomplish it quickly, we would do so, just so that they know that we're going to follow through on all of the things that we can do. And then we're going to follow up on any questions or anything that they may have that we can't answer in that moment. So really just giving the officers a voice, because if there's not trust within the police department, I think it's going to be very difficult for them to build trust in the community. And then I'd go out into the community. I believe in working from out on the road. I don't want to be behind a desk. So myself and the officers, we need to be out in the field. We need to be at HOA meetings. We need to be conducting town halls. We want to know, what does the community feel about its police department? What is it that they feel that we're doing right, and what is it that we could be doing better? And we need to go in open-minded, and we need to sit down and collaborate with them and come up with ideas that would make them feel comfortable in how we police them. So I think it's about building trust internally and externally. Also focusing on policies and training. Some of the things that I saw in the DOJ report, it wasn't that the officers were doing anything wrong. They were actually following policy, and they were behaving in the way that they were trained. And so if that brought attention to what they were doing, that means we need to reevaluate. Is the training matching the policy? Is the policy in line with what we want? It may be lawful, but is it what we want? It's not always about the policy just being within the law. We want to make sure that our policies are allowing us to treat our community with respect and with dignity. I'd also focus on recruitment and retention. We want to make sure that we have pop-up events throughout Phoenix. We want to make sure that we do what everybody else is doing, but make sure that we do it where we're capitalizing on all the things that Phoenix has to offer. We want to do billboard announcements. We want to be on social media. We want to do Google ads and Hulu ads. We want to make sure that we're everywhere showcasing all of the good work that is being done in the city of Phoenix, because they are doing a lot of good work here. We just need to make sure that we showcase that a lot better. In addition to that, focus on retention. Recruitment is great, but we need to keep our officers. Why are they leaving? Are we having exit interviews? Are we evaluating those exit interviews to see if we can do better so that our officers don't leave us? It's always good to recruit new officers, but it's even better to keep the ones that you have. Also, maybe focusing on lateral officers. Lateral officers from other agencies can come in and they can hit the ground running a lot faster. So those are my 3 priorities. I would work on trust, I would work on policies and procedures, and I would work on recruitment and retention. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Ramos. Chief Aziz, same question.
Yes, we can break this down really into 2 parts, but it is internal mechanisms that we focus on, and there's external mechanisms. The internal mechanisms that we focus on is something I've already done. I've been doing it as over 4 years serving as the chief of police in Prince George's County, Maryland. And that is focus on officers. Some of the things that we'll be doing, the number one thing that's often overlooked is mental health and wellness. We're focusing on internal mechanisms with mental health and wellness, doing the things that officers need to be done, since considering that the number one cause of death for officers is suicide. And many of those are ranked in the top 5, from prescription drug abuse to alcohol abuse, financial abuse, and we need to focus on it. In those priorities, of course, we're looking at how we do training and education for bringing in competency at all levels for first-line supervisors, for lieutenants and above, to make sure that they have the type of training that they need to exact policy. We need to look at our tech and how we are innovating and seeing if it is actually conducive with what we're doing in Phoenix. The unions have a strong role to play, and they often have ideas. They're the first people that officers go to, that we need to vet them. And I will vet them and see what's going on with their ideas to try to implement it. On the external side is community outreach. And community outreach comes in many forms. And that means meeting with the elected officials, meeting with department heads, non-governmental organizations who do things often better than what we do. So when we combine those, then we're able to move forward with policy after we provide the leadership, the resources, and the application of the policy for both of those. Then we'll be able to move into a more exact circumstance for where Phoenix is at after concentrating on the number of things from staffing to recruiting to retention. Those are normal processes which we enable to bring Phoenix up from 2,500 to 3,100.
Thank you, Chief Aziz. Question number 3, and we'll begin with Chief Ramos. Can you describe a time when you had to navigate competing priorities between community expectations, political leadership, staff, and sworn officers? What was your approach, and what did you learn?
I'm sorry, may you repeat that?
No problem. Can you describe a time when you had to navigate competing priorities between community expectations, political leadership, staff, and sworn officers? What was your approach to that, and what did you learn from that?
I think if I have to think of just one very quickly, I'll think about when we had an officer-involved shooting. We had an officer-involved shooting that impacted a gentleman who was experiencing a mental health crisis. That definitely brought up competing ideas and thoughts from everyone. So the media really just ran us through the mud, talking about how we we shot a person that was not armed. And so I had to talk to the administration, speak to the council about the fact that we needed to put out the body-worn camera footage. The body-worn camera footage, we normally don't put that out. And so we had to have a discussion along with the DA's office and everyone else about trying to put out the body-worn camera so that we could get our version out there. It turned out that the gentleman had a 6-inch knife when he was charging at our officer, so our officer was well within his right to do the shooting. However, no one really was on the same page about how to handle it. There were some talks about potentially firing the officer, even though he did not do anything wrong. The officers were feeling stressed out because they thought that he was going to get in trouble or get arrested for it. So it really just was, no one was on the same page at that time, and it took a lot of talking, it took a lot of hand-holding, and it took a lot of discussion before we finally were able to resolve that. I do want to add into that in the midst of that, we have a family who has lost their child, and so before we released the body-worn camera footage, we personally met with the family and allowed them to see the video in private because we knew that it was going to be very surprising for them to see their child in that fashion. The family broke down, but they were very appreciative of us taking that moment to really focus on their needs by giving them the privacy to view the body-worn camera footage rather than being surprised and seeing it in the media like everyone else was doing. That was just a time where we were not all in the same place. But I think by talking and realizing what was best for the department, but really focusing on what was best for the community, the family, and the officer together, we were able to kind of handle that in the best way possible for everyone involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Aziz, same question, please.
Please repeat the question.
Sure. Can you describe a time when you had to navigate competing priorities between community expectations, political leadership, staff, and sworn officers? What was your approach to that, and what did you learn?
So let me say, there are many issues. I think many of them are ongoing, so I can't speak of a lot of those things. But what I will say is we had to make a real tough decision. And the tough decision was in staffing, in a crisis of staffing. And could we actually look at our shifts and see if we were getting the return on our investment for the community and for the officers alike and for leadership who have been doing things a certain way, which is normalized for a period of time. And that was moving from 10-hour shifts to 12-hour shifts or 8-hour shifts. So how we approached it was we brought in a staffing study firm to look at what was the staffing, what was needed to be done, and what was the best fit for Prince George's County. We also brought in focus groups. We involved the unions in the decision. We put out surveys, and we met in roll calls, details across Prince George's County Police to make sure that we heard the input that we needed in order to make such a life-changing decision for moving from 10 hours or 8 hours to 12 hours. At the end, I can tell you, we brought in another staffing study group through the unfortunate circumstance of a previous one who passed away, and they came to the same conclusion, that it took 20% more personnel to do the job with the number that you have. So the tough decision was made to take the vote, to move that decision. I made that decision for us to move to 12-hour shifts. That came with a lot of heartache, a lot of pain, a lot of information coming back and forth when you disrupt officers' lives. What I learned from it was just that. Involve people in the process when you're making such a life-changing decision that's very needed for an organization. The community needed better response times. They needed officers to be available. The officers needed a better shift, and all leadership had a vested interest for the best outcome.
Thank you. Director Giordano?
Thank you. I was a new commander in 2015 and 2016 when things that happened around the country impacted our community residents. and they wanted to express their concerns about policing and things in general. We had handled protest activity in the past, but it wasn't something we did a lot of. Back then, that was my job to manage the plainclothes contingency in those groups. And I had to manage community members. They have the right, and I will wholeheartedly protect that right for them to assemble and provide their opinions. But we need to do it safely. So we worked very closely with them, both sides of whatever the issue was. We worked with both sides, and that was through our community response teams. They were embedded in those groups because, again, if you're trying to make relationships and trying to work out through issues and you've never met someone before, it's going to be really difficult in a moment of crisis. So we had those relationships already established. So I worked with them and communicated with them. Then we had to work with staffing and work with the officers because we want everyone to be safe. We want to make sure they understood their legal rights and what they could and could not do. So we worked with staffing. So we had to manage that with the different precincts and the different resources that we have in the city of Phoenix. And finally, I had to handle messaging, both internal and external. And that's where you get involved with not only people in the community, but also elected officials, city management, to make sure we're sending the same message, whether it's letting the community know about a road closure, whether it's letting them know what we're going to be doing, who's going to be out there, making sure that people can traverse the city safely. So again, working with all those different groups and understanding that all of us play a role in that, in the safety, and we need to work together because, again, if we try to do things in a silo, we'll never be successful. And all three of those groups need each other to be successful. And that was what I learned there. Again, it just goes all back to communication and relationship building. Again, if you don't have those relationships on the front end, you're going to have a really hard time making those relationships when you're trying to plan what's coming up in a day or two. So that's what I learned, and it was an incredible learning experience and professional growth for me.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the next section of questions. You will now have 90 seconds to respond per question. And I know some of you have kind of touched on this a bit in your earlier responses, so perhaps you can just elaborate. Through survey responses, the community expressed concerns about officer workload and morale. As chief, how do you make sure officers are getting the professional and mental health support they need while they effectively do their job? Chief Aziz, we'll begin with you.
Yes, and I touched on this earlier. So allow me to say that there are three things that must be provided here in order for us to move forward for officer morale and making sure that they're getting the things that they need. Number one is leadership. Provide a firm foundation of leadership. It starts at the top, but it goes down through every level of rank and file to provide the best leadership we can. We lead people and we manage resources, which is the next one. To actually manage resources and give officers the tools that they need and actual for them to perform their jobs that they have been given. They've been trained. We give them the best of training. They know what needs to be done, and they do it. And so we got to trust them with that. But the third one is about the application of the policy in order to move that forward. Officers want to be held accountable. They are responsible for the actions that they take, and we build a process, a framework for transparency and trust if we deliver on those three things. I think there's some simple things that we do to attempt to build morale based around what I just said, and that is making officers feel valued. One of my favorite authors, he says in a quote that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Feeling valued in the workplace is one simple thing I can tell you to start with if you want to start building morale. Do this right here. Just smile and don't be that person who's angry all the time. That'll start building morale immediately.
Thank you. Director Giordano?
That's a great question. I heard a supervisor years ago tell me that morale is not my problem, not my concern, and he couldn't have been more off the mark. It is our problem. It is our concern, and we should be very concerned with it. And it comes down to me of several things. I always go back to communication, effective communication. I think the men and women of the Phoenix Police Department want to be valued. They want to be valued for their work. It used to be pay. It used to be working. It used to be technology, whatever. They want to be valued. They want to be heard. And to hear, you have to listen. And you go out to briefings. You go out and you're there on a Friday night when you don't normally see command staff out there, and you listen to them. You let them ask questions, because even in my experience, if you're delivering a message they don't necessarily want to hear, if you take the time to go out and explain the why behind why that decision was made, they might not agree with it, but they'll understand it. Because again, I think everyone understands that everyone has a boss, and we have to do what's right right for the community. And we need to police to the expectations of the community. So it's important to explain that and let them be heard and valued. And then with the EAU and morale, it goes hand in hand. The employee assistance unit, we're so much better now than we were 30 years ago on taking care of employees, making sure they're healthy financially, make sure they're healthy physically, making sure they're healthy mentally, and letting them know it's okay when they're not to ask for help and be in a place to provide that help, whether it's through counseling, whether it's through phone calls to a counselor, whatever it might be, to get to the help they need. And again, staffing's always going to be an issue, but we'll work very hard to increase that staffing by increasing morale.
Thank you. Chief Ramos.
I think I touched on this earlier, how important it is to make sure that the officers have a voice. They have to know that you care about them as people. Yes, they're good as officers, but we can't look at employees as resources. They're people, they have feelings, and they need to be taken care of. Sometimes we don't let our officers take a day off because maybe we're a little short. We need to work with them, come up with alternatives, and know that them needing that day off is good for their mental health, and we need to make sure that we find ways to accommodate it rather than just saying no. And I think sometimes we're very quick to say no because of staffing and cost for service, but we really do need to prioritize our officers. We need to make sure that we know who we're dealing with. We need to put a face with a name. A lot of times you ask supervisors or employees names and they don't know. How can you be working with someone day in and day out and not know their names? Maybe you won't know their kids' names, but at least know the officer's name by face. So that way they know that you care about them and that they exist. If they're out because they're sick or they got into an accident, a call from a supervisor would go a long way to saying, hey, just checking in on you. Are you okay? You matter. I understand that you've been out a couple of days. Your presence has been missed. I think that goes a long way to not only improving trust, but that's how you improve morale. Just making sure that the officers know that you see them as a person, not just as a number. Also, making sure that they have what they need, making sure they have access to peer support, to EPA. Those are also good. Maybe bring in a clinician that can work with the officers if needed. Maybe working with the families. They're just more than just an officer with a gun and a badge. They're people, and we need to treat them as such. We always say that the officers are our most important resource, but sometimes we fail to treat them as such. And so that's what you need to do. Treat them like they matter. Treat them that they're important, because without them, no police department can ever be successful.
Thank you. Okay, question number 5. In 2025, the Phoenix Police Department is seeing a rise in candidate applications. How do you demonstrate to future applicants that Phoenix PD is the department they should want to work for, given the strong competition from surrounding cities? Also, once someone starts with the Phoenix Police Department, how do you retain them? You'll have 90 seconds for your response. Let's begin with Director Giordano.
That's a great question. That's a good problem to have when we're seeing applications go up and we're seeing hiring going up. Just 2 weeks ago, we checked in our office, and we're about 225 people higher than we were last year at this time for academy graduates. And that's statewide. So that's a really good trend for us to see. We finally crested 15,000 peace officers in the state, which we hadn't done in the last 5 or 6 years. So we're definitely going in the right direction. How do we convince them to come to Phoenix PD? Again, I go back to earlier in my career where this is where everyone wanted to come. This is where everyone wanted to work. And never in my young career did someone, very rarely, leave Phoenix PD to go to another Valley agency on a lateral position. Now, if you're moving to Flagstaff, moving to Tucson, I understand that. But no one went to another Valley agency. It was very, very rare. I want to go back to that. And that goes right back to employee wellness, making sure the employees feel heard and they're valued and they want to come here to the city of Phoenix. Again, pay used to be in the top 1 or 2 reasons why someone went to an employer. It's not the case anymore. That young men and women we're hiring today are more motivated, again, by being valued, by being heard, being respected for their work, and that's what we need to do. But again, we're on the right trajectory. I think the pendulum switch has shifted a little for us. We're getting more applicants, we're getting good applicants, and some of it goes back to our minimum standard in hiring. We've modernized those standards to increase our pool of applicants, because we were before declining people based on standards we created in 1975, and we can do better at standards in 2025. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Ramos?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sure. In 2025, the Phoenix Police Department is seeing a rise in candidate applications. How do you demonstrate to future applicants that Phoenix PD is the department they should want to work for, given the strong competition from surrounding cities? Also, once someone starts with Phoenix PD, how do you retain them?
First, I think it all starts with trust. When the community trusts you, then they want to come in and they want to do what you're doing. Every encounter that you have with a citizen is going to leave a positive or a negative feeling. And when you leave them with a positive feeling, when you've changed their lives and made a difference, sometimes those are the kids that grow up and want to be just like you. So just making sure that you treat people with respect and showing them what you can do so that they want to do it as well. I feel like you have to showcase what we are and what we do. I went to the training academy today, and it's a magnificent facility. Showcase it, open it up, let people take a tour so that they see how they're going to be trained, what type of equipment you have. The virtual reality is something that not all departments have. So I think we need to showcase what Phoenix can offer a little bit better so that people know of all the great opportunities that are here. A lot of opportunities in a city the size of Phoenix, but are we showcasing them enough? We could have internships, bringing kids in from the colleges, from the high schools, so that way they can spend time with people while they're working, and that way they will in turn want to turn around and be part of the organization. So bring them in, not in a police capacity, but maybe as an explorer, as an intern. The police assistants, that's a great program. Maybe grow that and use that as a segue to transitioning them into law enforcement. You don't want to lose the police assistants, but if you lose them to become an officer, that's even more helpful for us. So I just say showcase ourselves a little bit better, build trust in the community so that people want to be like us. Because when you don't have trust in the community, people don't want to be a part of what you are. When you Google and you come up with a DOJ report, that will scare some candidates away. So we need to offset what they were portraying by showing them that we're different, that we're better, and what we can bring to the table. How do we keep them? You have to value them. You have to make sure that they understand that they're more than just a number here, understand that they matter, that they're going to make a difference, and make sure that you embed them in the community so that the community can gain that experience and exposure with them. When the community supports your officers, sometimes that means more than when you support them. When people know that what they do matter and the community shows their support, then I think that go a long way. So retention, just by making sure that they understand that they're appreciated, by giving them that voice, and if they have any issues, try to work with them and fix them. Sometimes the problem is not as big as you would expect if you just take the moment to listen and then work to make a difference and change it. Once they know that you're gonna follow up and follow through with their requests, then at least they know that they've been heard. And when you feel heard, you feel like you matter. When you feel like you matter, you're important, and you wanna stay and you wanna continue making a difference in your community. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chief Aziz, same question.
Yes, I'll speak about some things that I've done as chief of police in Prince George's County. So when I arrived, we were shedding 12 officers per month, 12 officers per month. That is now in between the 5 and 6 officers range per month now. We've had the largest academy classes since 2016 in Prince George's County. So the turnaround has been a result of what I've actually done. So we started out by utilizing billboards. I started a homegrown campaign. I put the officers who were born and raised in Prince George's County on billboards. I put them on signs. I put them in the places that were traveled, that were well traveled. We made a commercial. We made a commercial of Prince George's County's finest, and we showcased them in a commercial. One of our commercials even played right before the Super Bowl. It was well watched by millions of people. We find the unconventional ways to actually honor our people by giving them awards. When I arrived, some awards came years late. And I come from a school that says, always pay a person before the sweat dries from their brow. So we give award ceremonies, we have promotion ceremonies, and for appointment ceremonies. We find ways that are unconventional, like meeting with the unions who have issues, and we bring it forth that people just want you to listen, they want to be heard, they want you to take action. And the very best thing that we can do is show our leadership a stellar representation of who we are and the leaders that we intend to be, that we want to be, and we model that and showcase that to the officers who are in front of us, and then they know that they'll stay in a department that actually cares about them when competition is stiff.
Thank you. All right, we are not quite halfway through our questions, and the clock is ticking. So I'm just going to give a gentle reminder that there is a timekeeper right in front of you. So if you guys can try as best as possible to stick to the 90 seconds for this section, I would appreciate it. Okay, so next question, question number 6, we will begin with Chief Ramos for this one. A topic of national discussion right now is immigration, and there are many questions in our community about what role local law enforcement plays in enforcing immigration laws. What role, if any, do you believe local police play in immigration enforcement, and how do you see that relationship with county, state, and federal governments?
I really don't think that local law enforcement should play a role in enforcement. I think we have a difficult enough job doing what we do now. If we start enforcing immigration, we're going to create a divide and a mistrust with that community. So we really need to just go into those communities and make sure that they hear us when we say that we want to service them. We're not here to pursue you, regardless of your immigration status. We want to be here to serve you. You can't go to someone's house one day, assist them, and think you're going to come the next day and take some of their family members away. We're going to lose trust in those communities if we do that. So that is why I say that local law enforcement should have no role in it. Now, if federal law enforcement for some reason find themselves where they need our assistance because they're being attacked or it's an officer safety issue, of course we would help our local and state and federal partners. But what we won't do and what we shouldn't do is get in the middle of something that is the responsibility of a federal agency, just simply because we will lose trust. Our community will lose trust in us if they can't trust us. So then they'll be victimized twice. If they are victims of a crime, they will not call us out of fear. And so now they're going to be easy victims for people who know that they will not feel comfortable calling the police department. And we don't want to do that to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Aziz?
Yes, I'll start out by saying, because immigration is such a hot topic and a hot button issue right now, but I'm from Maryland, and I am from the place that has made international news of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. That should warrant a lot of attention. That's the place that I come from. It's my county. So what I will say on how we actually affect this immigration issue, which Prince George's County has a large population of immigrants in our community. The 287G program made upon the 3 models that is right now, there's 18,500 police departments, about 650 so counties, maybe 200 more be added to it real soon from another state who are exacting 287G. At this point in time, when we're fighting crime, we're utilizing officers, and with our best resources, we just spoke about the critical staffing crisis that we're in, that we must focus our attention to violent crime, to high volumes of property crime here, and immigration issues are a result and a responsibility of the federal government. Now, I'll tell you what I do in Prince George's County. We have a meeting every month in some capacity with the chiefs, with the Maryland chiefs, which I am the president of, or a regular meeting with our federal partners, and we discuss what are the roles and responsibilities that ICE will be doing and what will we be doing to actually help. And that will be only violent crimes only. And that's how we operate. It's just simple as that.
Thank you. Director Giordano?
Thank you. I was here for SB 1070. I was a Phoenix police sergeant when that occurred, and I saw the fear and distrust it created in the neighborhood, and it was upsetting. Anytime a member of our community doesn't feel safe calling 911 when they need help, we failed, and we failed them. So again, we have spent so many years now after SB 1070 trying to build back those relationships. We're not there yet. There's still a lot of work to be done. There's still a lot of distrust in the community, but I think we're going in the right direction, and now it almost seems like we're going backwards. And it saddens me, and I don't want to go down that road. So we're going to continue to work on that. But we have no role in immigration and local law enforcement perspective. Just like the chief said, we would help in an officer safety situation, but other than that, we're not going to help. Phoenix just put out a press briefing last week just reminding the community that we don't do immigration enforcement. We will not ask about anyone's legal status. We don't do that. We want to provide service to the members of our community and provide them help when they need help, because if they're unwilling to call us, then it perpetuates violence and it perpetuates criminal acts because no one's there to help. And then they often also won't call to be witnesses of crime. So we need to work on that. But in my current role, I have cultivated a relationship with every police chief, pretty much every chief or sheriff in the state. We have these discussions, and we're all on the same page. Now, we talk to our federal partners. We get an idea of sometimes what they're doing, but they understand that we will not cross that line and engage in immigration enforcement with them because it's not in anyone's best interest. It's not outside of our purview. So that's what my belief is for the Phoenix Police Department moving forward, to not be involved in any manner.
Thank you. Question number 7, we'll begin with Chief Aziz. How will you approach issues of racial profiling and discrimination to ensure fair and unbiased policing and build trust in the community, especially in diverse neighborhoods?
Yeah, well, the quick, short answer is you don't tolerate racial profiling. Simple as that. And understanding there is, what racial profiling is, or if it's criminal profiling, and two very different things. I think even across the nation, there's only been a handful of cases that have been proven. Here's a fact that we know it exists, but it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. Now, I can tell you what we do in Prince George's County. We formulate an annual report that deals with all aspects of everything that an officer is actually involved in when it comes to internal affairs complaints, from what the stop was, for what was the outcome, and what did it actually result in. And so we use those numbers in a place where we don't ask, for race or those type of things. So we're looking forward and being forward thinking for how do we actually look at racial profiling. Now, here's one of the degrees that I can tell you that we can actually do. That is talk to people about what actual racial profiling is. When you're looking at the traffic data, which is very important because that's where it generally comes from, we have to make sure that those reports and those annual reports that I get from Internal Affairs Division, from the Professional Standards Bureau, actually don't indicate that there's a problem with racial profiling. And so we use those, we educate commanders, and we are transparent where we give it to the public so that they can vet it, and also to the Inspector General of Prince George's County so that he can vet it. So there's multiple layers of transparency.
Thank you. Director Giordano.
Similar to my last answer, there is no place in policing for policing through racial bias or through any kind of bias. But we all need to recognize that everyone has bias. Everyone has implicit biases. Some people have explicit biases, and you have to understand that. And when I went to MCSO, I got a really good education on how they were training their deputies on implicit versus explicit bias. Unfortunately, I had to come at the heels of a federal court monitoring oversight. But again, they put together a lot of good training in conjunction with the DOJ and the ACLU. And the officers went through it every year. And they learned a lot about themselves. It makes you really take a deep look inside of yourself. But again, there's no room for any kind of bias in policing. And it needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed early. It needs to be in policy. Make sure everyone understands the policy. But then there needs to be data. And there's nothing more telling than when you look at data. And MCSO had a traffic stop data survey done every year, and it showed bias. And when we bring deputies in to talk to them about that and figure out why they did what they did, they really couldn't explain it. And we would use examples of registration violations. You'd have registration where they pull someone over for registration violation for 30 days expired and write them a ticket, pull someone else over for 30 days registration violation and give them a warning. And they couldn't tell us why. Well, if you can't tell someone why, maybe it is an implicit bias. Maybe, hopefully it's not an explicit bias, but you need to address it, and you do that through data and accountability and making sure, because the best policy in the world, the best training in the world is ineffective if you're not making sure it's being done on the back end when members of the department are interacting with members of our community.
Thank you. Chief Ramos.
I think you need to make sure that the policies are set and that the department is aware that it's not going to be tolerated by any means. You want to make sure that the training is set as well. You make sure that there's implicit bias training, and so that it's not just one time a year, but it's a refresher training. It's not just one time in their career. We want to make sure that they're consistently being trained. We want to make sure that they're doing virtual reality scenarios so that they understand how to deal with people in different ways. We also want to make sure that we publicize our data. We want to collect the data on traffic stop uses of forces, complaints, and we want to publicize that so that people know what we're dealing with. And if there's room for improvement, then we need to be open and transparent about that. If there are any complaints made, rather than just putting them under the rug, we will actively investigate them and make sure that we publicize those results as well. So one, make sure that the policy matches up with the training, and make sure that the public is aware by sharing that information on a dashboard. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Giordano, we'll begin with you. Given the fact that the Department of Justice investigation has ended, how does the department move forward?
Over the last 3 years, the department has continued to move forward, waiting on the final report, and we're making significant changes already. Now that the DOJ has closed out the investigation, we don't stop. We don't go back. We don't turn the ship around. The ship is moving in the right direction. We need to continue that. We have a lot of momentum. We're doing a lot of really good things. We need to continue. And we do that again, fine-tuning our policies, fine-tuning our quality assurance, fine-tuning our body-worn camera reviews, all of that in an effort to get better. And we should never stop evolving. And again, I think we're making a lot of positive changes. We have made them already, and we need to continue to make those. Again, you should always be evolving, always looking for the best practices. Again, reaching out to other agencies, see what they're doing. But ultimately, my ultimate goal would be for us to be that beacon where everyone calls Phoenix, hey, we want to do this. What is Phoenix PD doing? I want that to be us. I want us to be the leader nationally, if not internationally, on how we treat our community, how we work with our community members, how we do training, and how we check and make sure that officers are following the policy appropriately, and then provide training if someone is falling short. But again, I know there's been a lot of talk. I read a lot of articles where, okay, DOJ is gone, we'll just go back to the old ways. That's never going to happen. It should never happen. We should always be moving forward, always evolving, always policing to the expectations of the community that we serve.
Thank you. Chief Ramos.
I think we keep moving forward. We dissect the report and make sure we share that with the community so that way they know what we've done. There have been a lot of changes that have already been implemented, some policy changes. Make sure that that is being shared. So I think we still need to have more town halls, more forums with the community and sharing the report, talking about how we changed it and what we found ourselves when we looked into some of these allegations. A lot of the allegations, as I said before, evolved more about officers doing things that were questionable in the eyes of the community, but it was within policy. So now we're going to evaluate all of the policies once again to make sure that not only are they legal, but that they're just. That it's something that if the community sees it, they're not going to think twice about it because they're going to understand why we're doing it. So I think we should just continue evaluating all policies, making sure that we address all the concerns that were on the DOJ report, continue emphasizing training, bringing the community into our training so that they understand how we're training our officers. Sometimes bring different people from the community in for training. We had our mental health session, and instead of just doing strictly book training, we actually brought a family member of a mother that was killed when she was having a behavioral crisis, and we incorporated this person into the curriculum, because teaching them is one thing, but what they hear from the people that are impacted by what they do is different as well. So maybe giving the training a different outlook, not just going textbook, but also just going real life and bringing people in that have experienced some of these things that the officers have done so they can express how they felt and how they can do better moving forward.
Thank you. Chief Aziz?
Yes, I would, first say even though the DOJ is moving, for dismissal, does not mean the problems have been dismissed. So we will still have to address the core problems of the DOJ report. They have not went away. There are people who are expecting some results and some actions to go along with the core foundings of the DOJ report. I can tell you my experience that I've actually done in Prince George's County as chief of police, that I came in under police reform, and we made some of in the state, we made some of the most sweeping reforms in policing across the nation this nation has ever seen. Locally, it was the police reform work group who issued 50 recommendations to the county executive in order to get those things done that were mirroring the issues that had plagued policing in Maryland. I implemented those recommendations. 46 of those recommendations were implemented in a transparent way with a public dashboard vetted by the Inspector General and the upper elected officials who were involved in that process. Now, the core issues here that we need to focus on in police reform is still 21st century policing and putting those 58 recommendations into effect, which is sound policy, and realizing one thing in that report that really stood out: homeless issue can be everyone's problem. It's not a singular police solution to it. We need to work in MDTs to get that job done and listen.
Thank you. Next question. Sometimes officers have to make quick decisions in dangerous situations. How do you make sure officers are safe while also minimizing harm and ensuring the rights and safety of the community members, especially during encounters with residents that are emotionally charged? We'll begin with Chief Ramos.
I think it all starts with training. We need to make sure that they're adequately trained. We need to make sure that they're running scenarios left and right about dealing with people that are going through a behavioral crisis. Sometimes there's nothing wrong, but you need to go back and maybe look at the body-worn camera footage, look at the reports, look at the use of the forces, and see what could have been done differently. It's not that it's wrong or right, but it could have been done differently and handled a little bit better. So sometimes we need to go back and just review and make sure that we are just being open with the employee. And sorry about that. Sometimes I think the biggest concern is really making sure that the employee is doing what they need to do without putting themselves or the other person at risk. Sometimes we put so much fear into our officers that they themselves are taking too long to react. And that should never be the case. I mean, officer safety should always be our #1 priority. So we want to make sure that they're comfortable in handling these situations and making sure that if there's something that needs to be discussed, that you discuss it with the employee, making sure that they know you're not in trouble. However, I do think that you could have done this or you could have done that. In some scenarios, I've seen body-worn camera footage where the officers took too long to tase a person or too long to shoot a person because they were so concerned about the public outcry. But in the end, I think we need to do that even when things are right, maybe take a look at it and see if we could be doing something a little bit different and making sure that we tailor the training accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Aziz?
Yes, it starts with training and education, making sure that officers are safe, especially dealing with the current atmosphere that officers are put in a very precarious situation, and the jails are becoming the new housing for people who are suffering from mental psychosis, which is an ineffective way to deal with the issues and make sure officers are safe when we are put into places that we deal with issues that we have normally have not dealt with in the past. So first, making sure officers are trained. CIT training is very important, and we talk about 40 hours of training, which is just about a semester's worth of training. When we have people who are getting 4-year degrees who can deal with this issue relatively well, but we have 1 semester of training and we have to make those decisions relatively fast. I would say when we're looking at policy and how policy is exacted and are we doing the right things, training and education, the academy should be at the forefront of innovation, of technology, of new ideas, of promising practices and best practices. And we should involve our clinicians inside of that and our NGOs who often do it better than what we do. Not-for-profit organizations, people who care in a different way from police. If that we can add them and strengthen them to our core, then we can deal with those aspects of making sure officers are safe. The best of training is one hand. The best of policy is another, but both of those things need to meet at the same time.
Thank you. Director Giordano?
Providing members of our community that are in mental stress is very near and dear to my heart. In 2015, when we expanded our Community Engagement Bureau, now Community Engagement and then Community Relations, we created the first full-time CIT squad in the state, to my knowledge. And it was done with staffing issues and staffing concerns, but the chief at the time thought it was very important to have, so we built it. We got the right people in the right place, provided them with the advanced training, and again, we were able to go out and take people who needed help. Again, did they commit a crime? Possibly. Did they need to go to jail? Would they get the help they needed in jail? Absolutely not. So it's near and dear to my heart. Why keep putting someone in jail who's not going to get help? Because when they get out, they're going to have the same problem. So we were able to divert a lot of those people to crisis response, and they were able to get the help they needed. So when they were released, usually the charges would go away and they would get the help they needed to be successful members of the community. Again, it's very important. So not only do we have those 2 squads now that go out and do that, it all goes back to communications, because 9 times out of 10, if you talk to communications operators, they can kind of understand when they get the first call that this person might be suffering mental distress, and they'll communicate that to the officers. So when the officers get that, they know what to look for. They know to look for different signs, because sometimes when someone's in mental crisis, it can look like aggression, and that's not what it is. But officers need to, those split-second moments you talked about, they need to understand they can slow things down, take time, time's on our side. Don't be authoritative, calm down, talk, reasonable, engage in conversation, and hopefully successfully conclude that situation without having to use any type of force, and then get the person the help they need.
Thank you. Next question. As the police chief for the 5th largest city in the country, how do you plan to improve relations with the disenfranchised, including LGBTQ+, Hispanic and African American communities in Phoenix, and how will this be implemented on the force? Would you be open to required and ongoing training for all police? And this question will begin with Chief Aziz.
Yes. Can you repeat the first part of that question?
Sure. As the police chief for the 5th largest city in the country, how do you plan to improve relations with the disenfranchised, including LGBTQ+, Hispanic, and African American communities in Phoenix?
Yes. Let me say what the actions that I've taken that have proven to be successful in Prince George's County. I arrived over 4 years ago. We immediately started having meetings with our LGBTQ plus committee. Prince George's County did not have any pride event. We went to other counties, to the neighboring district for festivities. We organized the first pride event under my watch, the police, not another organization, the police. That is in its 3rd annual event. We just had it just last week, where we did a walk across the Woodrow Wilson Bridge, and many people came out, including elected officials, down in our beautiful National Harbor. I've met with the presidents of the African diaspora who are members in Prince George's County, which has a large population. We've met with the Mexican consulate, who's come to my office to talk about the issues dealing with making people feel welcomed in a marginalized community. And we also have a badge, a LGBTQ badge, that officers wear for the entire month in June. They have it on, right now during the month of June. So we're moving these things in place by meeting with marginalized groups in Prince George's County. We're 65% Black, and we across the county, and Latino communities, El Salvadorian. Just last summer, I held 5 or 6 events dealing with ice cream giveaways, where I gave ice cream away to kids and families from the truck myself, handing out ice cream in the immigrant communities, and they saw us in a very different light. But who doesn't like ice cream, right?
Thank you. Director Giordano.
Just for the record, I do like ice cream. When I was the commander of the Community Relations Bureau, we had 9 police advisory boards when I got there. And I recognized we were missing some segments of the community, so I created 3 additional ones: a refugee advisory board, a cross-disabilities advisory board, as well as an interfaith advisory board. So we had all the religions together. And what I found was every quarter when we met with each one of those groups individually, I would do a presentation. Then Lieutenant Orender, now Chief Orender, would do a presentation as well. But really what it was is a sharing of information. It was understanding the issues they had in their communities and understanding it from the police perspective. And they ultimately became really good ambassadors for the department because they understood what we were going through, but also conversely, they knew they could call us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we would answer their phone calls and answer their questions and work with them. Because again, if anyone is afraid of the police, if anyone is unwilling to call when they need help, we failed. So that starts with communication and building those relationships. So again, when I left community relations, we had 12 advisory boards, met with each one of them every quarter, and then we try to get them all together once a year to get together, because again, every group has different issues, but every group has a lot of the same issues. So it was really good to watch them discuss amongst themselves where they thought the police department could do better, where we were doing good, but how we could better communicate with them. So I'm a big proponent of that. I'm a big proponent of training. And again, taking, and Chief Horner, sorry, we would take members, patrol officers to some of those meetings to expose them to different communities and see the support they have out there in the communities. That's what I would do.
Thank you. And Chief Ramos?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sure. As the police chief for the 5th largest city in the country, how do you plan to improve relations with the disenfranchised, including LGBTQ+, Hispanic, and African American communities in Phoenix? And how will this be implemented on the force? Also, would you be open to required and ongoing training for all police?
So I think like everything else is about communication and actually being out in these communities. So not only myself, but I think that the officers need to be embedded in these communities. We can't just go where we're wanted. We have to go where we're needed as well. And so being there, being at the meetings, having open conversation, not when there's a crisis, but just day to day. So I feel like when you're exposed to people and you're interacting with them, there's a sense of comfort. And if there's a sense of comfort, then they're going to be able to tell you what their concerns are. Once you know what their concerns are, you can work with them. If there's not a liaison with the chief's office, make sure that there is one so that there's an open line of communication. But I didn't say being present, making sure that there's communication, and also if there's no specific training, make sure that there is. I was working on an LGBTQ presentation for it to be taught to all of our recruits because someone told us we needed a liaison, and I said, no, we don't. But then the more I kept digging and thinking about it, there were so many questions that I had. Things have changed so much. I'm like, if I don't know, the recruits definitely don't know how to treat people in this category. So we went ahead and we implemented a training that will be taught to our recruits and then also a refresher during annual in-service training. Why? Because we need to learn about people, interact with them so that we're both comfortable and so that we're treating them all with respect. So be in the community, not just when needed, but even if you're not needed, just be present, be involved, be engaged, be open, and just listen. If they have some recommendations, make sure that you take them into consideration and that you are open and accessible to them when needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. What role should Phoenix police play in keeping our schools safe? And do you have any examples from your career to support your stance? We'll begin with Director Giordano.
I guess a lot of things are near and dear to my heart. I was an SRO. I was an SRO sergeant, and then as the Community Relations Bureau commander, I supervised all SROs. At that time, we had 87 in the city. So I worked very close with them. Very, very big believer in the program. I think breaking down those barriers, letting young men and women on campuses know that the police are there to help and they'll listen. Again, but conversely, you have to put the right person on that school campus. Sometimes the SROs don't work weekends, don't work nights, don't work holidays. So sometimes you get people that go there that aren't the best fit to work around school-age children. And those are the ones you see in the news. That's where you see things go wrong. So vetting the person that you put on that school campus is incredibly important. I think they play a huge role, if not a visual deterrent, but also if there was some type of active shooter investigation, whatever it might be. But also, when I was a child crime sergeant, I can't tell you how many times a young child wouldn't disclose to anyone but the school resource officer because that person had talked to them at lunch every day, and they would disclose, this is what's happened to me at home, and then we were able to get that child help because they weren't comfortable telling anyone else. So those relationships are invaluable in providing that level of service. I sat on the school safety task force looking at ways to get, because every agency is hurting for officers, and then sometimes it's really hard to put people in schools. So I sat on the superintendent's school safety task force looking for alternative ideas, and we've come up with a couple of good ideas to bring back people, whether it's in a part-time position or even maybe retirees, to come back, get them recertified, and put them back in school campuses, and that would satisfy the grant requirements for payment from the school district to the city to reimburse. So again, very near and dear to my heart, very important. My wife's a first grade school teacher, so I have to say a few of those things because otherwise I would never hear the end of it, but I do believe in it very much so.
Thank you. And Chief Ramos, please.
I think SROs are very important in the schools, but I think sometimes we give them a little bit too much responsibility. I think it's only one person and you have a whole school, and a lot of times they're focused on the problem children and not so much about bridging gaps. So we still have to have the police that are in that area make sure that they have relationships with the school staff, make sure they're going in there doing a lunch and learn, just popping into the school, having lunch with the kids while they're just having fun. After school, while they're getting on the bus, just standing by and doing a high five is about building relationships with the youth and also building relationships with the staff, making sure that they know what to do in the case that there is an active shooter. Are we doing training with the staff and our officers, not just the SRO, but everyone who's in that area? If there was an incident at that school, everybody that would be responding should be doing training together. You don't want to train when you need it. You want to make sure that you train beforehand so that if there is an issue, that everyone knows what to do. So I would say communication, relationship building, and just making sure that the staff is familiar with not just the SRO, but the officers working in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Aziz?
Yes, I'm really a supporter of SROs in the school. I'll start out by saying, I mentioned those 46 recommendations that we put forth. One of the four that was not exacted was the removal of SROs from our schools. And I supported that, not to remove the SROs from our schools. Now, we work with our schools. We have a great relationship, but part of that is the foundation is to make sure our SROs feel valued. So we give them their education. They are members of the national organization. They receive the best training. They receive the best education because they don't often get to take off during the school year, so they have to take off during the summer. So they're pressing, they are with the kids. One thing we did to remove this stigma that comes along with police in the schools, that we moved our SROs into more of a mentorship role, that they serve with young people in the school, that they are not the threat, they are there, they are the guardians, but they'll be a warrior when called upon in order to save our teachers, our great teachers in our schools, and our students if that need should arise. But that mentorship role has become so valued. The director of public safety, he attends my ComStat meetings every Thursday. And we often have meetings talking about how can we address some of the young people, and that goes hand in hand with what the SROs are doing. And I also want to say involve them in the events and have the specialized training for them, and it enables them to feel valued.
Thank you. All right, so we're moving into question number 12, and the clock is ticking. So I'm going to just remind you guys that the next two questions, you'll have 90 seconds for your responses. And I don't want to have to cut you guys off. So just, again, keep an eye on the clock right in front of me there and try to keep your questions tight, okay? All right, Chief Ramos, we'll begin with you. Phoenix residents have concerns about crime, including human trafficking and drug activity. What specific programs and strategies will you implement to address these issues? Please respond, or please provide concrete actions and measurable outcomes. And I know that's a lot, so let me know if you need me to repeat the question. Anyone?
I'll do my best with it. So I think the first thing we need to do is gather information. A lot of times perception is not reality. So we want to gather the information and see if what they're saying that's happening, that it actually is happening. At that point, we'll go back into these communities and discuss our findings and what our action will be based on those findings. So if there is identified crime in the area, we're going to make sure that we work as a team. We're going to bring in all of the units, and we're going to do surveillances in the area, and we're going to be proactive about it. We don't want to be overly assertive, but we want to make sure that we're visible, and at the same time that we're there doing some undercover work so that we can actually bring a solution to the neighborhood. We want to keep the community informed as to what we're doing, let them know of our progress. If we make any arrests, we want to make sure that we're sharing all of that information so that they stay engaged. We want to make sure we go back and follow up with the community members, let them know what our successes were, what our challenges are, if they're still present, and let them know what we hope to do to solve the problem. But I would say continuous conversation, follow up and follow through with the community, letting them know what we're doing, and then just being open and receptive when they call in between the follow-ups so that they can give you some new information if available. So that's what I would do. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Aziz?
Yes. Human trafficking, sex trafficking is very real. I'll tell you what we do. We have a focus with Interpol, especially with our federal partners who are looking into many of these groups who are running human trafficking, sex trafficking organizations. And oftentimes, this starts in human trafficking, but it ends up into sex trafficking and drug trafficking. It takes many different forms. I just had a walk where I gave remarks this past weekend with the one of the sororities, Delta sorority, where they wanted to bring attention to this. And I gave them the remarks. But one thing I said was that they have to know the signs, because they look at it and they don't actually know the signs. It may look very different. People who are on the street who look like they're begging for money may be in trafficking, and they don't know it. And people who are being dropped off and with multiple people in a van on different places, they may be trafficked. And some people experience, they don't even know their names anymore. They've been given new names and they don't know their names. I think the education, what we do with our Chiefs Advisory Committee, our coffee clubs, HOAs, crime watch groups, that we strengthen them with the information to know the signs, to deal with those resources that they have in order to help us with human trafficking. I will say the missing persons unit plays a vital role in that. Most of the times we have neglected the missing persons in marginalized communities, and we have to focus on that. So I created the first missing persons unit to do that.
Thank you. Director Giordano?
Thank you. You know, it's very important, one, to understand what the issues are. And I can't tell you how many times I've gone to community meetings armed with data on what are the most prevalent crimes in that area that during those hours that I'm working. And then I go meet with community members who our lists couldn't be more polar opposite. So there's a balance between what we're documenting and what are quality of life issues for the community members. So you need to communicate on the front end, because you can address both, and you should address both. But it goes all back to data. How are we collecting data? Where are we looking at data? And it goes right now with the real-time crime centers is invaluable information. We're tracking that. But all of our local partners also are tracking that, because again, if someone commits a crime in Glendale, they're probably going to commit a crime in Phoenix, maybe a crime in Tempe. You need to make sure we're all talking, and that's happening. I go to those regional meetings with the other chiefs all the time, and I listen to them collaborate on that, because again, the crimes are happening all over the valley, and we need to make sure we're talking and we're leveraging resources, because everyone has finite resources. So we need to leverage those resources. But it's community engagement as well. Again, getting out, because if you talk to someone that lives in the community, they know who's causing the problems. They know who they are. But again, it's also not spending a lot of time trying to just arrest people for low-level misdemeanor crimes. I talked about it earlier, getting them the help they need, solve the problem versus just making it go away for an hour or two while they're being incarcerated, because that doesn't help anybody. That's what I would focus on.
Thank you. Next question. Phoenix continues to grapple with how to humanely and legally address homelessness. What role should police play in addressing issues tied to homelessness, and how would you coordinate with other agencies to avoid criminalizing poverty? We'll begin with Chief Aziz.
Yes, I think this problem is so perplexing. And when you study the history of it, it goes back at least 600 years from feudal England in the 13th or so century, even dealing with what happened after Black Death. And we think it's just started happening here in America just yesterday or 10 years ago, and there's a direct correlation with that. What we need to do is look at the best performing models. I think there are some cities who have addressed the issue and reduced it that we need to focus on, that did not involve a total police solution. A total police solution to homelessness is problematic, because the police are not in the best interest of resolving a problem that many other departments with this city, or many other NGOs or not-for-profit organizations, they do it better than what we do. And we need to be a partner with them and assist them in getting to the core of the problem, especially when it comes to the number one reason that homeless people are asking is, I just want somebody to listen to me and listen to my concerns. In a fast-moving police environment, listening is not really on the priority to understanding what the nuisance is. And so we keep doing the same things over and over, expecting a different result. That's the definition of insanity. So what I would like to do is work with those NGOs and work with our other departments and deal with the real solutions that have occurred in other places, in other major cities.
Thank you. Director Giordano.
I spent a good portion of my career working just west and south of here. So I spent a lot of time working with members of our community that were unsheltered, and I feel for them. And if you talk to most people that are unsheltered, there's an underlying, again, I go back to it, but there's an underlying condition, whether it's substance abuse, mental health crisis, whatever it might be. Again, let's address the underlying concern, get people the help they need, and then hopefully get them so they're not in an unsheltered status any longer. Again, even if there's nothing more than a humane reason, it's a cost savings, it's a time savings, because again, if you keep putting people in jail for low-level misdemeanor crimes, and I never use the term victimless because they're not victimless, but again, if you have the same person you're arresting 3 days a week for stealing something from a Circle K, are you really solving the problem? You might solve it for a day, but you're not solving the underlying problem, and it's very expensive. And then that person's not getting any help. They come out of jail with all of the same life issues, and they go right back to what they were doing before. So again, we can't be the only solution, so we need to work very closely with the Office of Homeless Solutions, work together, leverage our resources, and again, provide them help. And I was talking to the presiding judge, and the homeless court is wonderful. It kind of forces a little bit, or at least gives them a member that's unsheltered an opportunity to take services and be diverted from the criminal trial, which is really, really beneficial. So I'm a big supporter of that type of court's intervention on the front end. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Ramos.
Dealing with the unhoused is a very frustrating problem for law enforcement, and the reason it's frustrating is because we don't have the resources to offer them. So what we need to do is make sure that our officers know who to contact to provide these wraparound services, not just taking them off the street, but giving them the services that they need. You could put them into a hotel room, but if you're not dealing with the root cause, they're just gonna be back out on the street doing the same old things. So we need to make sure that our officers know who to contact in these situations so that they can really truly help them rather than just arresting them. Just earlier today, we spoke to the public defender, and he spoke about a diversion program that he's working on, and he wanted to know how he would feel about that. And I think that the officers would be very happy to have a diversion program. I think all they need is resources. They need to be able to know what they can do when they respond to these calls. We get called all the time, and you get there, you just don't know what to do. So just making sure our officers are aware of the resources available and making sure that they know that there are other alternatives to just arresting them, that there are programs out here that will help them get off of the streets and stay off the streets. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, this next portion of the interview is designated for candidate-specific questions. Again, please keep your responses to 90 seconds. And for this, we are going to begin with Chief Ramos. So there have been numerous news articles about your exit from DeKalb County. Can you explain in your own words what happened and why you are no longer police chief? And do you have any regrets you can share with us?
Oh, it's really quite simple. So most chiefs of police they're politically assigned. And so we got a new CEO, and she decided she wanted to move in a different direction. There were no reasons given. I never met with the CEO, and so there were no reasons provided. There was nothing wrong. Crime was at an all-time low. So there was nothing wrong within the department. It was just something that could be done, and it was done as it's done across the nation every day. There's new administration that comes in, and they choose their own police chiefs, as you know, they're well within their right. Do I have any regrets? No, I don't have any regrets because I feel like I gave everything that I had to the department. We're in a different place than we were back in 2019. Definitely created a lot of positions, created a lot of policy, did a lot of community outreach and engagement, just passed our CALIA accreditation with flying colors because of everything that we've done. So no regrets as far as the job itself. I wish it would have been done differently, but that's not something that I could have controlled.
Thank you. Next question, this one is for Chief Aziz. You've worked in several police departments, including Dallas, Texas, and Prince George's County, Maryland, outside of DC. Every department has its own personality and culture. How do you determine where you need to adapt and where you ask the organization to adapt?
Well, first of all, you listen a lot. I'm from the Peter Drucker School, and he says, listen, listen, and then listen some more. Culture, it varies. Dallas PD is very different from Prince George's County PD. So when I looked at it, I knew that Prince George's County PD would not be Dallas PD. It had its own culture, its own progressiveness. It had some really fine officers who were working, and the environment was shaped very different. So it took a very specific way to actually move into some of the directions that we moved in. I'll briefly give an example of that of culture. Prince George's County, one of the finest dressed police departments in the nation. We wear a tie and long sleeve shirts during certain times of the year. That's a cultural issue. So officers who were new wanted to move into, let me wear the shirt that I want to wear during any time of the year. And that was very delicate when I stood up in front of 300-400 officers and said, it's a cultural issue, let's look at it because some people are going to disagree with it. An officer stood right up there and said, I'm one of them, I disagree with it. So it took us a minute to work through and navigate what we were applying for a department and not trying to make it another department. Phoenix will have its own culture, and I have to sit back, look at it, observe, talk to people, talk to unions, talk to officers, talk to our citizens, and then I make a determination which way to move.
Thank you. Director Giordano, you've been out of operational policing for nearly 7 years, a tumultuous time in American policing and the Phoenix Police Department. How did you evolve policing during this time?
Although I've been out of operational policing, I've been well connected through Arizona Post. We set the basic academy curriculum for all 17 of the regional academies around the state. We also set minimum hiring standards. We set all of the firearms qualifications. So I'm very well connected to law enforcement still, even though I'm not operational day in, day out. I go to training all over the place. I talk to all the chiefs around the state when I go to my regional meetings, and I'm still well connected in the arena. We were at the academy today, and it was funny. One of the lieutenants of the academy couldn't answer a question about a piece of equipment they have there. I was able to answer that question because, again, that's how connected I am. Plus, I spent almost 23 years here at the Phoenix Police Department, spent time over at the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. I'm very ingrained in police work. I'm a constant reader. I'm always watching, always listening. I still have a plethora of friends that are still in law enforcement day in, day out, and they routinely call me to run scenarios by me. So I feel like although I'm not wearing a uniform, carrying a gun every day, I'm still engaged in making decisions, helping them make decisions. Because again, as I travel around the state, I meet a lot of police chiefs that are much younger in tenure, and sometimes they don't want to call people in their region of the state. They want to call me because, again, I'm on a different place, but I can give them advice. And I'm really proud of that they're comfortable enough to call me and ask for my advice on how they should handle situations. So that's why I'm still really well connected, and I think that's why it'd be an easy transition to come back to the Phoenix Police Department.
Thank you. Chief Ramos, it can be difficult to lead an organization coming from the outside. What have you learned from your experience in coming into a new organization in the top leadership role, and how would you be successful in Phoenix?
There is no doubt that it is very difficult to come from the outside. You are basically starting from scratch as far as learning who's who, what the culture is like, what the policies are like sometimes. And so what you have to do is, and I'm so sorry, I drew a complete blank because the question was coming in from the outside.
Yes, let me repeat it. It can be difficult to lead an organization coming from outside. What have you learned from your experience in coming into a new organization in the top leadership role, and how would you be successful in Phoenix?
Yes, so I think you have to take your time to learn the department. Sometimes you want to go ahead and start making changes, but you really can't make those changes until you learn the culture of the department. You have to learn what's working internally and what's not working. You have to know the people. Sometimes you have good people, but they're not in the right position. And so I think there's just so much that you need to evaluate, and it doesn't happen over time, but it does happen if you dive in and get to know the people, get to know who's who, get to know what's driving the culture in the department. It's usually a certain amount of people, there's a theme around it. So you really have to just take the time to really make yourself accessible, go out and meet everyone at roll calls, go out on calls, go to the training. You really need to learn the department And it probably took me, I would say maybe about 3 years to actually fully grasp what was going on in my old department. But once I did it, I was able to implement a lot of change and make a lot of differences in the department to make us run a little bit better. There were some people that had to be shuffled around that were not happy. However, by moving people around into positions that they were better suited for, the department was able to operate a lot better. By creating new positions and putting officers back out in the road, we were able to be more effective, even though we were experiencing a staffing shortages. Increasing the number of civilians allowed us to be able to do more policing with less policing. So it does take time, but I think with some time, some effort, some dedication, and really just being open, and you have to just be, my time is up. Just, you have to be listening and learning from your people before you walk in and start changing things.
Thank you. Chief Aziz, Phoenix has very strong labor unions. What is your experience in working with labor groups to make continuous improvements?
Yes, I have a little experience working with labor unions. I was the former president, local president of the union, the regional president of the union, and the national chair of a union and executive director for well over 12 years in our total capacity. So I've worked with national counterparts. I've written legislation and meet and confer situations. I've also defended those with a union. And I moved from one place that operated in meet and confer, which I helped co-author many years ago, to a strong union state, a police union. That police union with a CBA from a city where unions operated with a council manager form of government under meet and confer, to a state where unions operate under a true CBA. So my experience with unions, even in Maryland, I am fortunate enough to be the president of Maryland Chiefs of Police. Unions have been a greater part of my whole career, that I've been in and out of them for a long time, locally, regionally, and nationally. So my ideas, though, of focus on working with unions has been really to listen to the issues, because I know the terrain really, really well. I've been fortunate enough to be in 2 states, deal with it on 2 different, sides of the coin, and that is listen and digest what it actually is that they desire, and then make the appropriate decision.
Thank you. Director Giordano, in an interview with Arizona Horizon in 2021, you stated the most significant reason for the police shortage is retirement. Do you still believe that to be the case? Why or why not? And what would you do to address staffing issues in Phoenix?
If I remember that article correctly, the retirement being, we had a lot of people in a retirement age, if I remember the article correctly. And that's true. We hire in waves, and there were waves that were eligible to retire in 2021, 2020, and we're getting ready to come across another one of those. We have a group of people that are in the 16 to 17 year range, and then we have a very large gap based on the recession from the late 2000s. We need to re-engage those people, because if they all decide to leave, they're under the old pension system. If they all decide to leave right at 20, we're going to be in even more dire straits than we are now, reference manpower. So we need to re-engage those people and convince them that they're heard, that they're valued, and to see if we can convince them to stay. Because again, although we're hiring more now today, we're going to struggle if that group of people leaves. The next group behind them are on the 25-year pension system, so they'll be here longer, but it's that one group we really need to focus on. And again, like I talked about it, we're still seeing people leave Phoenix to go to other metropolitan police departments, municipal police departments, and we need to fix that as well. And that comes back through morale, communication, and re-engaging with them to make them understand and make them reevaluate and re-understand why they joined the Phoenix Police Department in the first place again, and how it's a good place to work. It's a good environment. It's a supportive environment. We're moving in the right direction, and we will be the beacon of policing, in my opinion, across the country, and that they want to be part of that. So that's what we need to do. But again, getting that group, I can't emphasize it enough, that 16 to 17 year range now, we really need to re-engage them, or we're going to lose them at 20 years, and that'll be harmful to the organization.
Thank you. Chief Ramos, DeKalb County does not have strong labor groups. Phoenix does. How would you approach working with the labor groups here? to move the Phoenix Police Department forward?
Well, first, I'd like to say why we don't have a strong union. Technically, I took up that role for the police department because I'm all about improving for the police department, because without a good police department, you're just not going to be able to provide good service. So before I even address that question, I just want to say that without a strong union, I was able to get them a pay increase from $38,000. They're now at $68,000 in less than 5 years. They now get paid for their holidays. They now get free insurance. They have a slew of things that they did not have 5 years ago, just simply because I was advocating at every turn for them. So I do believe in what the union does. The union should and does have the officers' best interests at heart, and so do I. So I think that we can work closely together to make sure that the officers have what they need within reason, obviously. But I'm wholeheartedly there to support the officers, and so I would work with the union to make sure that I'm not missing out on anything and that they're sharing with me how we can best improve the situation for the officers. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Aziz, longtime residents of Phoenix may remember a former police chief from Dallas. There are concerns that the philosophies that work in Dallas may not work here in Phoenix. How would you overcome these concerns?
Yes, I have a demonstrated history in Dallas PD. I'm sure that many people, if they done their homework to know that, then they would know my reputation in Dallas is stellar. My reputation in Prince George's County is equally as stellar. I'm my own person and my own man. I operate on a very different style. While we work together in one of the most progressive police departments in the nation for under Chief David Kunkel, was considered the level 5 hedgehog leader, and we studied great on him. I learned those lessons and I valued those lessons, and I've taken them to my career has been in upward mobility. Prince George's County has benefited from that type of leadership. The type of leader that I've shown to be for people who would have those concerns, that I would emulate anyone else in their style. That was Chief Garcia's style from Dallas to Phoenix. My style is a culmination of another department. I've already demonstrated in Prince George's County the type of leader that I am and that I will be. And the officers and the community have gravitated towards me in order for a more effective style of policing. We have accomplished great crime reduction. We've met with unions. My assistant chief, we make sure that he meets with the stewards, 55 of them, every month. So we're addressing those issues. My style of policing and what I deliver is one of servitude, and that means that I'm delivering a transformational and a situational type of leadership style that may have been different from what you already had.
Thank you. Director Giordano, you are the only candidate that is not currently a police chief and has not served as the top leader in a municipal police department. What do you think will be your biggest challenges if you are the next Phoenix police chief?
I think my experience with the Phoenix Police Department is unmatched. I think I spent 22 years here learning from some of the best leaders in the country. And then I did have an opportunity to go over to the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office as they called me the Executive Chief of Enforcement. I ran the day-to-day operations of the enforcement side of the house. I had more than 800 employees that reported through my chain of command. I would argue that alone, that's be one of the largest police departments in the state of Arizona. And I ran that day-to-day on behalf of Paul Penzone, an elected official. So I think that puts me in the category of equal to most police chiefs in Arizona. And then now I am a peer to every police chief and every sheriff in the state. I meet with them regularly. We share ideas and we talk. So I'm at the chief level, just not on a sworn capacity. But again, I think with my experience with Phoenix, it'll be a seamless transition for me to come back into Phoenix. I understand I've worked in basically in every precinct, every bureau in the city. So I'm very comfortable with that. So I don't have to learn that. I don't have to spend 2 or 3 years getting to know the people, getting to know the area. You know, I've been to all the precincts. I've been to all the bureaus. I've worked in most of them, and I know everybody. So that part of it would be easy for me. And then just being the chief, again, working with the command staff here and the executive staff would be seamless for me because I know all of them. I've worked them all for years. I understand the way the city works, and I have incredible community contacts that would help support me in that endeavor and that transition.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to challenge you guys. Lightning round. Responses should be 30 seconds. Okay. We will begin with Chief Ramos. How do you get those who resist change to see your vision and get on board?
Communication. So you have to listen to them so they can listen to you. Sometimes you may not agree, but if you understand why the other person feels a certain kind of way, you become open-minded. So I believe in communication, not forcing things down people's throat, but just kind of talking about it, doing pros and cons, and kind of evaluating both sides. So that's how I would do it, just kind of conversating with people and giving them my perspective and why my viewpoint is what it is. Sometimes we tend to not want to say why we feel a certain kind of way or why we want to do something, but we should just take that extra moment to do so. It may make all the difference.
Thank you. Chief Aziz? Same question, yes, sir.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. How do you get those who resist change to see your vision and get on board?
Well, I can tell you that resistance to any change is one of the characteristics of policing. So what you have to do really is talk about it and model the behavior, but police like facts, and we deal with the facts that are directly in front of us, and you model that behavior and you give examples. And one of the best way I think that eliminates this resistance is that you show people a better way. What I found is when I send officers or commanders out to places like Senior Management Institute of Police, the FBI National Academy, Northwest Police School of Command, any IECP conferences, that they interact with other individuals who are talking change, and then they implement that same type of style. So change is not as resistant as it should be. But there's another avenue to that, but I'll stop there.
Thank you. All right, Director Giordano, same question.
I always go back to effective communication, clear expectations, and explain the why. Oftentimes when we make changes, people don't want to hear it. They don't want to listen. They don't understand why. If you take just a few extra minutes and explain to them how you came to the solution. But again, if you haven't engaged them in the decision-making on the front end, you've probably already lost a lot of them. So again, collaboration on the front end, clear expectations, effective communication, and collaboration is what's going to make you successful. People who are resistant to change.
Thank you. Guys, you're doing great. Again, questions, keep them to 30 seconds. What steps would you take to hold commanders accountable and ensure consistent performance and productivity across their respective areas? We'll begin with Chief Aziz.
Yeah, I've held commanders accountable. And coming into Prince George's County Police Department, then accountability has been strengthened under my leadership. And everyone in my command knows that the policies will be followed, that we will exact the type of leadership that we expect. And I hold true to the claim, don't expect what you don't inspect. And so my commanders are accountable through policy, and I have held them accountable.
Thank you. Director Giordano?
I think you hold the commanders accountable just like any other employee in the organization. And I think what you find and what I've seen is failure to communicate properly. It's the old telephone game. When something comes out of the police chief or executive staff, is it being effectively communicated down the chain of command to where the end user understands what the chief was trying to say? So it's holding them accountable to provide the message as it was given to them to their chain of command. But again, you hold them accountable just like you would anyone else in the organization.
Thank you. Chief Ramos?
I think you have to set clear expectations. Make sure they know what the expectations are. Make sure that if they have any questions that you answer the questions so they can't use it as an excuse. Make sure that you follow up and you follow through. Sometimes you tell people to do stuff, you assume they've done it, you don't follow up, and then 2 months later you realize they haven't done it. So make sure that you provide a follow-up status and a timeline. I want you to tell me this by this date. Be very specific so that they know the expectations.
Thank you. Next question. Given today's highly political and deeply polarized climate, how would you navigate these challenges in policing? We'll begin with Director Giordano.
Again, I feel like a broken record, but it just goes back to communication, clear expectations. And you just need to talk and understand the expectations of the community we serve, the members of the department, as well as city staff and city management, and communicate that effectively. Again, it's a shared vision. The police department should not have a different vision than the city manager, than other departments. We all support the city of Phoenix. We want to make it the best place we possibly can for the residents that we serve.
Thank you. Chief Ramos?
I think that even as a police chief, you may end up in some political situations, but you try to maintain the department being neutral. So the information that you push down is that it's not political, that we're gonna do our jobs and we're gonna do what we're supposed to do per policy and per the law, and then try to keep the politics out as much as possible, even if you know that they are in there somewhere. So just try to keep the department neutral and make sure that the department just knows we're gonna follow the rules and the policies.
Thank you. And Chief Aziz?
Yes, I think we really have to remind people in challenging times that 99% of people support us. And there's a small percentage, that 1% left, that does not. In this challenging time, what I find out when I'm talking, I go to in-service every week and talk to the officers who are there and make sure that they understand what's going on. I talk to command. When I'm not there, they speak to it. And so making sure that these challenges, through a historical perspective, that they understand them.
Thank you. Domestic companion animal abuse is prevalent and on the rise in the Phoenix area. Would you, as chief, sit with the community to find a solution? We'll begin with Chief Ramos.
Could you repeat that?
Sure. Domestic companion, animal abuse is prevalent and on the rise in the Phoenix area. Would you, as chief, sit with the community to find a solution?
Absolutely. Even if I think it may not be something that should be law enforcement focused, if the community wants you to be involved, you should take the time to talk about it. Maybe it does turn out to be something that the police can assist with, but even if not, you should always be part of the conversation and always be willing to sit at the table and have a discussion.
Thank you. Chief Aziz?
Yes, we have met with the community dealing with animal abuse, but we have also charged individuals who have, committed such a heinous thing. There are even pressers that I've done for officers and who have been addressed in a capacity, their work capacity for this issue. But we will prosecute them, we will educate them, we will talk about it. Abusing an animal, a helpless animal, will not be tolerated.
Thank you. Director Giordano?
Well, my wife is an incredible animal lover, so I would not be able to go home tonight if I said no to this answer, but I wouldn't anyway. It's a serious problem in the community. It's been going on for several years, very high-profile incidents. So again, we'd have to dedicate resources to it, because oftentimes officers, I think, are missing the signs and symptoms of animals being abused, and we need to make sure they're recognizing on the front end of it, so we take the appropriate enforcement action, or at least just make sure the animals are getting the help they need to be safe and cared for.
Thank you. What new initiatives would you establish to heighten accountability for improved ethics? And we'll begin with Chief Aziz.
Number one is really random audits when we're approving accountability. Accountability really starts at the top. There's no such thing without a policy that is strengthened for accountability, but you do need random audits to follow up to make sure accountability is forthright. But also there is our connection, that I connect with our Inspector General who looks at things from a different perspective on accountability measures, ethics and accountability, and that moves us in the right direction inside the police service.
Thank you. Director Giordano?
We're losing recruits in the academy all over the state for ethics violations in the academy. And it sounds silly, but we started doing it about a year ago. We do an hour block the first week of every academy around the state, teaching young men and women what is ethics, what is integrity, and what's it mean to be accountable to yourself, to be accountable to the rules. Again, sounds silly, but we've found we're losing people who don't truly understand it, so we're doing that. And that's what I would do, is continue that moving forward and continue with continuing training throughout the officers' careers to make sure they understand what that means to us, what it means to the organization and the community we serve.
Thank you. Chief Ramos?
I think it always goes back to training. So we have to train in the academy, but we also have to train our officers. We need to work closely with IA and see what they're seeing. Sometimes they may not be looking at an ethical violation. They may just be looking at a procedural violation or a legal violation. We want to make sure that we identify those and we hold people accountable for those things. If you start tolerating it, it will continue and it could easily get out of hand. So we want to make sure we nip it in the bud and make sure the department knows that it will not be tolerated under any circumstances.
Thank you. And last question in this section. If you have to make a difficult decision that was unpopular with the force, yet critical for transparency, would you prioritize morale or community trust? And we will begin with Director Giordano.
I don't think you prioritize either one of those. Those are shared issues, I believe. Community trust and morale. You have to address the issue, and that's again goes back to my communication on explaining the why. And I think sometimes if we don't provide the information, because historically we've always been standoffish on providing information on the front end. We want to wait till everything's done. Sometimes you have enough information where you can educate the community, you can educate internally, because if you don't fill that void, those two groups will fill it. But you need to, they're both equally important in my opinion. You have to address both.
Thank you. Chief Ramos?
I think you have to talk to both parties, the community and the police department. It's not about prioritizing one or the other. Which one is the best for us all? Sometimes you will make a decision that impacts the community, that's best for the department, but it's vice versa. So as long as we explain it, talk about why we're making these decisions, and make sure that if there are any questions or any other recommendations, that we take them into consideration before making a final decision. But we'll talk to both parties to see if there's something that we're missing so we can get both of their perspectives. But at least the changes won't be a surprise. We will have a discussion about it before that final decision is made.
Thank you. And Chief Aziz?
Can you state the question again?
Yes. If you have to make a difficult decision that was unpopular with the force, yet critical for transparency, would you prioritize morale or community trust?
Yeah, neither one of those can be prioritized over the other. You make decisions based on what is right and what is fair and what is necessary for the time in every situation. And sometimes those are difficult decisions. What I normally tell my command and officers is that sometimes that's just a bag of bad decisions. And you have to reach in and pull out the best of that bad decisions. And that's just the fact of being a police chief, that I've made many of those decisions in 4 years. And so we do what's right for the people and for the officers.
Thank you. Okay, you will now have 2 minutes for closing remarks. Please include what you would want your legacy to be if you are selected to be the next Phoenix Police Chief. We will begin with Chief Ramos.
Well, I just want to say that the city of Phoenix is working towards being a better police department. There's nothing wrong with them, but they're still working to be better, and I would love to be a part of that opportunity. I really admire a lot of the changes that I've seen that have been implemented. There were some concerns about the unhoused and their property, and I saw immediately there were policies in place, and now there's instructions on what you can do with your property, how to retrieve it, information that was not readily available in the past. So I do like a city that takes prompt action. I do like a city that takes in consideration what the community is thinking. I do like an administration that supports their officers, and just looking at all of the equipment and the technology, maybe the people that are not in it understand that they are really fortunate to have a lot of the things that they do have, because a lot of departments don't have what Phoenix has. And so I really would want to take this opportunity to work with them and continue moving the department forward. I'd like to be able to help with some recruitment, bring some diversity into the police department, because I think the police department is not quite representative of the community. So I think that we need, there's a little bit of room of improvement for that. I would want to work a little bit closer with the community, maybe bring them in a little bit more into the department and bring them into the training facility and have them do some virtual reality so that they understand what our officers go through on a day-to-day basis. A lot of times we can sit back and criticize, but unless you're in these positions, you just don't know. I really am focused on community outreach and engagement. That is my strength. I believe in going out to the people, listening to the people, and then coming back and seeing how the department can do better. But we really can't do that without working with our officers, making sure the officers have what they need, and making sure that they're taken care of first. And people say, well, how can you do both? Well, you can. You can prioritize both, but you start internally, work your way externally to make sure that you are taking care of both. Because officers can't take care of the community if they're not taking care of themselves. So I really would like that opportunity to be able to come in and just continue moving forward as the city is already doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Aziz?
Yes, I would, thank you to the city of Phoenix first. But my legacy, not concentrating on self-interest, but there are some things that down the road that you would want to be remembered for, all the positive things. And that is, number one, that officers felt supported. That officers felt that they had a chief who represented their best interests, that they could be proud of the leader, the chief representative for them, who works for them in their best interest. For the community, I would love for the community to say we built community engagement and community policing, and we went in the right direction to break down the barriers that have existed for not just decades, but for centuries, especially in marginalized communities. I would like the staff to say that I was a team builder and a team player, looking out for the best interests of Phoenicians. I would like the officers to have the best health and wellness, to concentrate on those things and further remove the stigma that has existed for so long in policing. That I restored the brand of Phoenix policing. That we have a robust and vibrant police force. We have a supportive community, and the brand of our standing, of our beautiful badge and our beautiful patch, that it would be out there shining, and that we would be the best representative and shining example for the citizens of Phoenix to be proud of. That I made the better place in policing, in training, in education, and we got better outcomes, and we moved the department forward in technology. And when people ask during that time, what was the best time that they had for community and police, that they would say that the Chief Aziz brought forth a right and purposeful leadership model that moved us into the future. Even when we thought we were at our heights, we moved even further.
Thank you. Director Giordano?
Thank you. I'm not a legacy type of person. I don't need to put my name on something. I really don't. When I look at this position and look at the opening here, I didn't put in the last 2 times because I have a really good job at Arizona Post. But the city of Phoenix gave so much to me during my life, during my early years. The Phoenix Police Department, the city of Phoenix treated me and my family very well. And I'm in an opportunity now where, with all my training and experience and my varied experience both at the county and the state now, as well as my more than 2 decades with the Phoenix Police Department, I feel like I have something to give back. When they pinned that badge, my dad, retired NYPD, pinned my badge on my chest in 1994. It was the proudest moment of my life. And to be able to come back and finish out my career as a Phoenix police chief is something I couldn't even have counted on or couldn't have thought about 30 years ago. But again, working with the men and women here, because I think they're the best in the country, and I travel around the country talking to police officers all over, and I do believe they're the best in the country here in the Phoenix Police Department. And to come back and work with them, help provide them the support they need. And really, I guess if you want to talk about legacy, when I look back at my life and I look back at my career, I would like people to say that I treated them well. I was fair, I was honest, and I represented the Phoenix Police Department well. Because again, it's incredibly important to me what this place looks like moving forward. Because I talk to hundreds of people who have worked here, currently work here, want to work here, and I want to make sure that we're getting the best and the brightest to come to the Phoenix Police Department, and then getting them to stay for long, rewarding careers. But I also want to make sure that we do focus on mental wellness, financial wellness, physical wellness, so that when they do retire after years and years of good, dedicated service community members, they live a long and prosperous life with their families. Because that, at the end of the day, that's the most important part. I think anyone who wears a uniform, that's the most important part of their life. Thank you.
Thank you. And this concludes our forum. I want to thank you all for your participation tonight and your interest in the city of Phoenix. The new chief is expected to be announced in July. I know it's been a busy day, and it'll be a busy week ahead for each of you. On behalf of the city of Phoenix, thank you, and thank you all for joining us, all of you live in the audience and watching online. To our finalists, good luck and good night.